Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Post Match Live with We Ain't Got No History. My name is David, and we'll be here for a few minutes at least. City versus Spurs kicks off in 20 minutes, as we got exactly 21 minutes. So, this might be pretty quick, because that might be a decent game, or it might not because nobody can stop City anyway. So, what's the difference? If you've if you've been hiding under a rock, you will have seen that City have won 15 in a row, breaking Chelsea's record from last season, which was 13 in a row, setting a new top flight record for most wins in a row for Pep Guardiola. So clearly they're running away with the league, but maybe Spurs can put the pressure on, right? That's what they're good at. But we're not here to talk about City or Spurs. We're here to talk about Chelsea versus Southampton, which was only 1-0 in the end, but really it was a fairly dominant performance from the Blues. 24 shots to 6, something like that. 8 versus 2 on target. And the one and only goal that I managed to get by Fraser Forster was from about 30 yards out from Marcus Alonso. But the scouting report on Forster was always that the long range efforts have a decent chance of squeaking by him, since he's a bit slow sometimes to move across his goal, and certainly on the Alonso shot, or Alonso free kick was it. He took his time to shuffle across from one side of the goal to the other, and by that time, Alonso's really pinpoint accurate shot. If we look at it, it was just inside the post, but it was long. It was past the goalkeeper into the back of the net. It was literally the final kick of the first half, which, as the cliche goes, is the best time to score. Not that we really needed to change the flow of the game. Chelsea, outside of maybe the first 10-15 minutes, which seems to be pretty customary these days for the slow start by Chelsea. Outside of those first 10-15 minutes, it was basically all Chelsea all the time until about the last 10 minutes, when Southampton brought on a couple of their players whom we expected to start and ended up, for whatever reason, not starting. Including Charlie Austin, who had started most of their games leading up to this point, and Sofiane Boufal. All these guys came on as substitutes for them. Lamina was an early sub after Cedric got hurt, after Cahill took him out. It was pretty slightly unlucky, but Cahill did put him into the advertising board, so that was pretty strong play there from the Chelsea captain. But Mario, or whatever his name is, Mario Lamina, former Juventus player, came on for Cedric in the 17th minute. But yeah, otherwise Chelsea stuck with basically the same lineup as on Tuesday. There was one change, which was Cahill for Rudiger, but really that's a fairly immaterial change at this point. Courtois in goal as always. Back three of Cahill, Christensen, and Azpilicueta. Midfield two, staying with Conte and Bakayoko. Wingbacks of Alonso and Moses. And then the front three without a recognized striker once again, or somebody who actually plays striker most of the time, in Pedro, Hazard, and Willian. Hazard certainly barely spent any time playing as an actual number 9, of leading the line and all that. He kept dropping deep for almost from minute 1, and that's fine. Part of what unlocked Huddersfield on Tuesday was the constant movement of the front three. So Hazard dropping deep, Pedro and Willian, switching wings, drawing defenders out wide, etc., etc. That was a decent plan. I mean, I was kind of surprised that Morata wouldn't start. Maybe he's still bothered by the back, or whatever was his problem. He did come on for the final 10 minutes and did a lot of the usual Morata things that we don't necessarily always appreciate, such as going to ground easily and hitting his shot straight into the goalkeeper. But maybe we're being a bit too harsh. The substitute who really made a big difference for Chelsea was Cesc Fabregas, who I'm sure we all expected to start, but ended up not starting, which is fine. I always like Fabregas off the bench. I think he's very good at making good impact in a brief period of time, and certainly today he came on for, what was it, last 22 minutes, and for Pedro, and injected plenty of attacking impetus and quality into Chelsea's play. We seem to have gone a little flat by then, and we certainly not even just fresh legs. Fabregas's quality on the ball. He seemed motivated to make plenty of runs, and he came literally within inches of scoring on that kind of cross sort of shot. Maybe he was trying to spin it inside the post, but that one just kind of dribbled across the goal line, literally like an inch from the goal. So that was a bit unlucky for him. Pedro hit the post. Was his long range efforts from people like Bakayoko and Conte. Alonso had several other shots in addition to his goal that with his right foot even. Considering he's left-footed, those were pretty impressive. But Forster in the Southampton goal was up to those, unlike the free kick. But that one moment, it was all that mattered in the end. Chelsea keep a clean sheet for the first time in 5 games. Is it 5 games? Yeah, I think it was. We had been on a streak of 5 and 6 without a clean sheet, so this is the first clean sheet in about 5 games. Ine says that Morata and Fabregas look so good. I wasn't so sure about Morata looking good. I think he was all right. Fabregas certainly was impressive off the bench. Chelsea's third sub was Zappacosta for Moses for about the last 10 minutes. That seemed to be just a fresh legs sort of situation to kind of deal with the pace from Buffal and whoever else. Buffal, who was put on by Southampton. Charlie Austin had their best chance of the game probably almost immediately after coming on, and Courtois made the good save there. They had a good chance early on in the game as well, which came from a Conte turnover. So put that in your museum. You're not going to see that very often. But Conte giving the ball away in a pretty bad area with a back pass that went directly to Southampton. So they attacked down our right, put the cross in, just eludes Courtois, but Cahill was there, kind of sorted his feet out at the last minute and managed to poke it away. Then Alonso got the clearing touch. A good game from Alonso, really. He was doing everything that was required of him and more. Johnson is the first home 3 p.m. game since Burnley. Is that right? That's pretty shocking, really. Even in this day of TV ruling everything, it's a slave to Sky Sports and BT Sport with their random kickoff times and moving games at the last minute, and making them play on 2 days rest. So many chances wasted. Certainly, says John. Certainly, it was 8 shots. Was it 8 shots on target? And that's just the ones that actually went on target. So that's 7 saves for Forster, which is a pretty strong day at the office, even if he was possibly culpable for our only goal. 24 shots. So I mean, once again, it's a bit of a theme. Every once in a while, we manage to score 3 goals, like against Huddersfield or Newcastle, but it's once again back to not quite getting the finishing right. I mean, it can be finishing sometimes is a bit luck driven. There's only so much skill you can inject into that aspect of the game, and sometimes it can be a little cyclical where you have streaks of poor finishing, then good finishing. There's times when you score with basically every shot on target, and then there are times when, like right now, you have 8 shots on target and you score once, and even then that possibly should have been saved. So it's one of those things where you kind of just have to keep going and trust in the quality of your team and the squad. I mean, we know that Morata is a good goal scorer. Batshuayi has his moments. I'd expect Batshuayi to play against Bournemouth on Wednesday, but I've been expecting Batshuayi to play a couple times now, and he's been stuck to the bench. So who knows? Who knows? Had Morata played today, it would have been pretty obvious that Batshuayi plays on Wednesday. But now, who knows? Maybe we've been resting and preparing for that all-important League Cup quarterfinal against Bournemouth. Did Bakayoko start? Indeed, Bakayoko started. It was basically the same starting lineup as on Tuesday, minus the one change at the back where Cahill came back in for Rudiger. So again, it was the Conte-Bakayoko combination, which, as we were talking about on Tuesday, is kind of the combination we expected the future look of the 3-4-3 to be. I don't know if it's here to stay or if it's just a little phase right now. It looked like the 3-5-2 would be our formation of choice going forward, and now apparently we're back to the 3-4-3 at least this week. So who knows? Who knows? We'll see what happens against Bournemouth. I mean, certainly the one problem with the 3-5-2 is that it, as the name implies, it only requires the use of two forwards, and some of our best quality is in players like Willian and Pedro, so they were not getting much play at all, and they don't really fit into a 3-5-2 formation, especially with Batshuayi injured. So, it could be a bit of a necessity right now to go back to a 3-4-3 and give those guys some playing time. Certainly, Pedro looked lively. Willian, once again, looking excellent. Doing the usual Willian things where people get on his back for delaying on the ball a little bit, but that's that's Willian's style. He waits for the defender to come to him and then tries to beat him with the quick move, the quick cut to the right side. There's a couple of good skills from Willian, and he had one really good chance as well, which I think he just got his. It was early in the first half. I think he got his positioning just a little off. I think he thought he was a little further to the left of the goal, and he beat a guy to his right, and then just basically hit his shot well wide. And I think he had his bearings off a little bit. It looked like, but who knows? Who knows? I think Willian's in good form these days, so it's good to see him continuing to play and getting minutes. And a lot of it, I mean, when you say, Willian should improve by not delaying balls or passes, some of that was also when we don't play with a striker. Bakayoko did score, did he? When we play without a striker, oh yeah, he played. Yes, I was gonna say I missed the goal by Bakayoko today. No. We did score. Pedro did. Was it Hazard who scored? His goal was chalked off for marginal offside. Apparently, level is not a thing. Apparently, Fabregas's hair was offside or something. I don't know. But what were we talking about? Oh, when we can say, Willian should play the ball faster or not delay on it. But part of the problem with the 3-4-3 without a striker is when Hazard drops deep, really our only target man inside the box is Alonso. And it takes Alonso a little bit to get up there since he is a left wing back. And I mean, Pedro can run in there too, but he's not exactly going to be a physical presence to pick out. So it's, it requires a different style. And I think the 3-4-3 with no striker actually kind of suits Willian's game the best. But It's all different options, I think, and it's certainly nice to be able to switch it up a little bit. Last year's 3-4-3 was pretty rigid in the way that we always played the same thing, and opponents learned how to play against it. So now we have a few different looks where we actually can kind of keep them guessing, as opposed to knowing exactly what we're going to be bringing in. And here's our formation. Come beat us. Which formation looks better, 3-4-3 or 3-5-2? I think. Well, I mean, if we're going by this week, 3-4-3. I got no problems with 3-5-2, but we seem to be less effective going forward in it. The idea behind the 3-5-2 is more balance and more control in midfield. I don't know. I think we have the capacity to play well in either formation, and a lot of it will be dependent on opposition. The one thing is, I don't like to see the 3-5-2 against teams who sit deep, because I think we need an extra runner up front to try to put pressure on the defenders. There's really not much point in adding another midfielder against teams that sit deep, like West Ham. It's pretty obvious then. But either formation really also depends on the wingbacks playing well, and when the wingbacks don't play well, or we don't use them well enough, then I think both formations can struggle pretty. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but yeah, both formations can struggle depending on how well the wingbacks play. Vinay says, when we play 3-5-2, there seems to be quite a lot of space in the gap between the forwards and the midfield. Yeah, that could be too. But, I mean, some of that is, when we play the 3-5-2, then Morata plays up top, and Hazard has basically the job of moving all around, and he has to cover basically the same space as two wide forwards would cover in a 3-4-3. So, I mean, Hazard can do it, and we've seen him do this, and that gives him a lot of freedom to do whatever he wants. But it also does require him to be always at the top of his game, which, Hazard, he's got a little lazy streak to him every once in a while. This effort is good enough, he says. But Pedro should start in place of Alonso when he face teams which pack the bus. Yeah, it's actually something I'd like to see as well. I don't know how well Pedro likes to play as a wing back, but he certainly seems to be the best option there in terms of attacking, adding attacking presence, and that's putting Pedro as a left wing back and then adding more forwards seems to be our all-out attack, which we saw against, what was it, West Ham, was it? I forget when Conte did that just recently. Wasted chances, Summer, nice name. Indeed, lots of wasted chances. And who is available in January is the question. That is a good question. I don't know. I don't think... It's been a while since we've done big business in January. There's always rumors that we're going to do lots of business, but really our big business was selling as opposed to buying. We sold Oscar, and we sold Ramirez. All those guys were January moves. We almost sold Costa last year, as we remember. We might sell David Luiz. You never know. It's January seems to be our month of selling. And then we put the money received into an interest-bearing account, and then we invest it in the summer. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think Alexandro is the obvious name that's going to be brought up many times this January. He appears to be apparently not so happy at Juventus these days. They promised him a contract extension that never came or hasn't come yet. Apparently his own performances have not quite been up to the same par as before. So there's Alexandro. Apparently Ross Barkley's a thing, which I'm not sure anybody understands why, but maybe we're just looking for a homegrown bargain. I mean, Barkley does count as homegrown. He is fairly young, 20 whatever 4. Um, and he would be, last summer, Everton were quoting like 50 million for him with a year left on his contract. Well, now he has 6 months left on his contract. So he's plus an injury. So he's probably down to around 20, 25 million pounds, which in today's market is basically nothing. Considering that somebody like Thomas Lemar was 80 million, which is outrageous. Who's going to play 80 million for Thomas Lemar? But maybe somebody will. So in that market, 25 for Barkley is a good price. It's just whether is Barkley even worth 25? And depending on who you ask, he probably is. He possibly isn't. But maybe we're being harsh on him. There was a time a few years ago when everybody was all about Ross Barkley. So there's possibly still some talent in there. Vinay says other names. Boakie. Oh yeah, that random striker from like Bucharest or whatever. I don't think that's happening. That sounds like such a weird story, but his name is still there. Leon Bailey is somebody at Leipzig, and we were linked with Leon Bailey, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago now, back when he was coming out of, was it like Jamaica or something? And he ended up going to somewhere in Holland, I want to say. Sturridge. Oh yeah, there was that random story about Daniel Sturridge possibly coming back to us from Liverpool. Sturridge, we should only buy Sturridge if like we can get some super insurance on him, because that guy, as we know, is unfortunately always injured. Riyad Mahrez would be a very good addition, especially because he will be eligible to play in the Champions League, says Danny. Indeed, Riyad Mahrez. He's a name. I don't know what I think of his new hairstyle. I think that's at least a 20 million discount, or hair color, to be specific. If you haven't seen it, he bleached his hair, which mid 90s rapper look right there. Not a good look. I'm not sure what's happening there. Although not as shocking as Didier Drogba shaving off all his hair. If you haven't seen that, be sure to sit down and then go look around on the internet, because that was one of you just look it up and you're like, what's happening there? But it's just hair in the end, right? Anyway, Riyad Mahrez certainly would be a good addition, especially since he apparently seems to have recovered from his slump and has been playing quite well for Leicester City. And yeah, he's Leicester probably don't have aspirations of top 4 or even Europa League, so we can continue reassembling the 2016 Premier League champions at Chelsea. Now that we have Conte and Drinkwater, add in Mahrez, bring in Vardy just to complete the quadruple, the quadfecta. But no, I don't know. Mahrez would be fine. He seems. I think he was trying to move in the summer, and he did that thing where he disappeared on transfer deadline day, and people were just waiting to see where he would turn up in his car. But then nothing interesting. It wasn't like the Odemwingie when he turned up at QPR's training ground and was hoping to force through a transfer. Yeah. That was a fun time for him. Didn't quite work out. Surprisingly, didn't quite work out. So there's always going to be rumors, but I don't know. We obviously need to strengthen in terms of certainly on as somebody as a backup to Alonso. Heaven forbid Alonso picked up some sort of injury. We'd be pretty screwed. And that's before his goals and his presence of being able as a second runner in boxes and on crosses as an outlet for Courtois on the when we were forced to go long. Alonso, he has his critics, but the man fills a lot of roles on the team, a lot of crucial roles, and he needs a backup or a viable second option. Somebody like Alexandro obviously is much more than just a backup, but needs at least a backup. So it is. There's things that we need to start looking into for January. I'm not sure who's in charge of what now these days at Chelsea, with Emenalo now gone. And Emenalo was the technical director, so he was funneling all the scouting recommendations, taking input from Conte, and making setting direction, helping to set direction with the rest of the board. Now it seems to be all of Granovskaya's show, and it's unclear what her strategy might be. There's a rumor earlier today that we might be looking at PSV's technical director. I forget his name, Marcel something or other. But yeah, there's not much happening there, and that's possibly why we're also not the transfer rumors for January really haven't kicked into high gear just yet. But it's only mid-December, so there'll be plenty of time to wade through nonsense after nonsense for January. Anyway, so it's 35 past the hour now, and City versus Spurs have kicked off. So I think we're gonna call it a day here quickly and go watch that. Jennifer says we definitely have a relationship with PSV. Yeah, that does date back quite a while, or quite a long time, doesn't it? With even some prospects and back in the 10, 15 years ago, plus Hiddink and all those guys always coming over. So yeah, I could see us poaching a director, a sporting director from PSV. But yeah, well, it looks like West Ham won again today, so they're winning after a power surge at Stoke. Arnautovic scores again. All right, he's got his second goal of the season. Arsenal won against Newcastle. Crystal Palace won at the early kickoff. Brighton, Burnley 0-0. Chelsea winning. Huddersfield winning against Watford. And now City against Spurs. So, and then United play tomorrow, which will be the biggest impact for us in terms of the top four race. But 1-0 to Chelsea today. Next up for us is Bournemouth on Wednesday in the League Cup quarterfinals. And that is followed then by Saturday, once again, away to Everton. And another early kickoff on Saturday. It seems to be a trend. So yeah, there's not much turnaround there. So expect to see definite rotation for League Cup, one would presume. And that will be the day before Christmas Eve. And then on Boxing Day, we're at home against Brighton. And on the 30th, we're at home against Stoke. So lots of winnable games. Everton away, always tough, but Everton kind of are terrible. So that's what's ahead. Hopefully we see Michy on Wednesday, because it's starting to be kind of concerning. But unless we sign a striker in January, Michy can't go anywhere, regardless of how much Conte does or doesn't rate him. Anyway, I'm gonna go off to watch City and Spurs, at least until City score a couple goals, and then turn it off and get on with our lives. If you watched any of this or all of this, thank you. Thanks for all the comments. Be sure to visit us. We Ain't Got No History. Give us a like. Give us a tweet. Give us a comment, etc., etc. I shall talk to you after the Bournemouth game on Wednesday. So 1-0 to Chelsea today. Good win. Good clean sheet finally for the first time in seemingly ages, but only 5 games. Marcus Alonso with the free kick goal, because Marcus Alonso is really good at free kicks. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.